I would take you to my mother's house, where you could teach me love. I would give you spiced wine, my pomegranate wine to drink. Ooh, scandalous. That is Song of Songs H2, or Song of Solomon, as some Bibles call it. So, pomegranate wine has obviously been around for a while, is my point. Spring is just around the corner, and I would like something nice and light and sweet to drink once it starts warming up. So, pomegranate wine. Now, I'm going to be using fresh pomegranates. And by fresh pomegranates, I mean frozen, but they were fresh when I picked them from my grandpa's backyard. So, I live in a fairly warm climate, so pomegranates actually grow really, really well here. And of course, my grandpa had a couple trees, so I had to pick some and set the seeds aside for later. The variety that I'm using is a little bit different from what you get at the store. The pomegranates are a bit lighter in color and in taste, a little bit sweeter. It's not that same kind of tartness that you get from store-bought pomegranates or pomegranate juice. So in order to get the seeds out, first I cut the top of a pomegranate in kind of a circular motion, and then I pop the top off. And then I cut down alongside the membranes to open it up. From there, I painstakingly picked the seeds out of the pomegranate. Now, I have heard that you can flip the pomegranate upside down and whack it with a spoon. I would personally not recommend that because I always end up injuring myself. So, like I said, I just picked them out by hand. And you just repeat that 100 million times until you have a waxy residue all over your fingers. That takes several days to go away. I have 4 pounds here. I have two 2-pound bags. I have no idea how many pomegranates that took, but it was a lot. Probably like at least 12. Maybe more than that. And then once I was done, I threw them in the freezer until the time was right. And the time is now. So, I've got a sanitized bucket here. And we're going to drop all 4 pounds of these in here. Oh, that's a lot. Once we've got those in, we're going to do 2 pounds of sugar, which I have already weighed out. This is just your standard plain white sugar. And a cup of tea. 1 or 2 bags and like 8 ounces of water is totally fine. The tea is going to add tannins, so tannins are a little complicated. They cause bitterness, which sounds bad, but trust me, it's not. It helps offset the acidity and the sweetness, and it helps round it out more. It also gives it better mouthfeel, so that the finished wine will coat the palate a little more, and you can get a better taste of it. So that's very important. And now once I'm done with that, I'm going to add a gallon of water. This water is warm because these pomegranate seeds are frozen. And then we're going to stir it until it's nice and incorporated. Now, normally I would add citrus somewhere around here, or some people would use an acid blend. That's totally valid as well. But pomegranate is actually fairly acidic of a fruit on its own, so I don't want to add too much acidity all at the same time. If I need to add it in later, I can do that. Totally fine. However, what I am going to do, and I normally don't do this, but I'm actually going to sterilize this with a Campton tablet. The reason that I'm doing this is because when I harvested and processed these pomegranates, some of them had mold in them. I just cut the bad parts out and kept the rest of the seeds and, threw them in the bag. And then later I kind of went back and was like, maybe that was a bad idea, because there could still be mold spores on the remainder of the pomegranate seeds. Even if it's not like visibly growing, it's probably still there. So normally I don't use too many chemicals when I'm brewing, but this time I think it warrants a Campden tablet. Another thing that I could do, if I'm really, really concerned, is that I could just cook it. You know, heat kills bad things. That's why we cook. But I don't really want the taste of cooked pomegranate. I have made pomegranate jams before, and I kind of just prefer it raw. I just love eating pomegranates straight off the tree. So good. So, I don't want to cook it. Give it a quick stir again. And then this Campden tablet is going to need about 24 hours to really sterilize everything. So I'm just going to set it aside for now. Also, normally I would add in seasonings right now, but I don't really know how fermentation is going to affect the flavor of the pomegranate seeds. So, like, I don't really know what would go with it. So I'm going to hold off on that until I can get a good taste of this once the fermentation is nice and active and ready to go. Now, you may have noticed that I didn't do anything to the seeds to make them extract their juice. The juice is going to escape just by nature of them having been frozen. It breaks down the cell walls, breaks down the membranes, all of that stuff. The outside kind of waxy something. Yeah, they're like little capsules of tastiness. Anyway, I'm off track. So supposedly the yeast will take care of that on its own, in addition to the freezing and thawing. The yeast themselves, according to a book I read, should break down the outer wall of the pomegranate seeds and, you know, just help themselves to everything inside, and it should take care of itself. The catch, of course, being that if I take a reading, it's not going to include all the sugars that are actually in the pomegranate. And like I said, these are lighter and sweeter than your average pomegranate, so if I looked up the amount of sugar in a pomegranate, I still might be underestimating the amount of sugar in this. So my hydrometer reading might be flawed, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really that worried about it. A hydrometer reading is kind of a luxury. It's not a strict necessity. You'll be able to get drunk off it either way. So I'm gonna slap this lid back on. And I'm gonna throw the airlock in because I already carved a hole in the lid and I kinda need it to stay sealed. So I'm gonna set this aside for like 24 hours while the Campden tablet does its thing and sterilizes the brew and hopefully kills all those mold spores that I almost definitely introduced. So, I will see you in 24 hours. So, pardon the shaky cam. I was not able to do my usual video setup, but the next day I went in and took a quick reading. As you can see, the must is getting a little bit of that pink color from the pomegranate seeds, but not a lot. So the reading came out to 1.070, which I'm happy with. So I poured the sample back into the must, pitched the yeast, and as you can see, I'm just dry pitching it, no fancy schmancy hydrating it first. Actually, just a little bit more. There we go. And after that, I put the lid back on, pop in the airlock, make sure it's secured, and call it a day. Okay, Okay, so I kind of had to rack my wine off camera as well. I do babysitting as a side gig. It was Christmas break, and I definitely would have gotten a copyright strike if SpongeBob was blaring in the background the entire video. So, the pomegranate seeds did break down very well, actually. They were still somewhat cohesive, but if you squished them between your fingers, you wouldn't really feel that sort of waxy outer layer. They gave up their juices very, very eagerly. So eagerly, in fact, that I got 2 of these. These are both 3/4 of a gallon, so I got just shy of 1.5 gallons of wine. And look at that color. Oh, that's very nice. So I did a little bit more research on the type of pomegranate that I'm using. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe this is the Sonoran White. They were brought to this area by Spanish missionaries probably in the 1500s or so. But look at that. I am very happy with that. But anyway, besides racking, I haven't actually done anything else to these. I haven't added any sugar or any seasonings or anything like that. So, what I'm going to do is set this aside, and I'm going to take a quick reading. Okay. 0.990. That is dry. Wow. That is very dry. So we started at about 1.070, if I recall correctly. Now it's 0.990, which means that we are at around 10.5% alcohol content, or ABV, alcohol by volume. I like that alcohol content. So, anyway, let's give it a try. It smells good. It does smell dry. I'm getting a little bit of pomegranate. I don't actually taste it. Dry. Definitely getting the pomegranate. It's definitely light and it's mild, but at the same time, I am actually getting a little note of sweetness, even though I know that, you know, objectively, like 0.990, that is incredibly dry, but the sweetness is somehow still coming through for me. That being said, I'm kind of more of a fan of half sweet to sweet wines. Also, we are going to be doing more to these later on. I am going to be adding seasonings and spices, and I think a little bit of sweetness, a little bit more sweetness is going to be needed to offset that. Oh, that is very good though. I like that. I'm liking this one so far. Yeah, if you like dry wines, you can absolutely just stop here and call it a day. I have half of mine too, but I think I'm still gonna stick with my plan, and I'm still gonna add seasonings. And also I'm going to add sugar, which means that I'm going to have to pasteurize this somehow. Normally I don't actually like sulfites all that much, but I've already used them. I'm already kind of committed, and I do want something a little bit sweeter than this. So I think I'm gonna add a Campton tablet to each of these. Hopefully it's not too much, because neither of these is a full gallon. This is about 3 quarts. And I know if I don't add enough, it'll just reactivate. I have had that happen. And then I added the sugar, and next thing I know, it's like 16% ABV. Fun times, fun times. So the way you break up a Campton tablet is you just get 2 spoons and you squeeze. And you hope that you have more hand strength than I do. There we go. And if I don't get it all in there, fine. Like I said, this is less than a gallon anyway. Oh, that's so good. I am so pleased with that. Give this a little stir, just make sure everything's incorporated. This does kind of have a little bit more headspace than I would like, but this is about as good as it's gonna get. I'm so happy with this one right now. Oof. There we go. Slap these airlocks back on. They were sitting on the sanitized dish drying mat. All right, and there we go. I'm gonna leave this for another 24 hours or so, just until the sulfites kill off all the yeast colonies and anything else that might have gotten in there. And then 24 hours, I'll come back, I'll add some sugar, I'll add some spices, and we'll take it from there. All right, so it's actually been 48 hours, but who's counting? Since I'm in the unique position to have 2 separate jugs of pomegranate wine, I'm going to season them both a little bit differently and see which one I like more. One of them I'm going to put mint, and the other I'm going to put cinnamon and cardamom. All of these ingredients are mentioned in the Bible, though I believe cardamom is only mentioned in Revelations, the New Testament, which means it's not going to be in the Tanakh. So if you're Jewish and trying to stay true to scripture, you know, do with that one what you will. All right, so first things first. I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of sugar to both of these. I think that's about 500 grams, but I'm not 100% sure, and I don't feel like actually weighing out the sugar. So there we go. Also, everything here, the funnel, the cup, all that's all been sanitized with Star San. Maybe be gentler. I feel like I'm splashing. That's no good. No. So anyway, I'm going to stir this as gently as I can to avoid splashing, especially because this is like a month old. Yeah, splashing right now is really bad, and honestly, even the amount of headspace I have is making me kind of nervous. Alright, that took a little bit, but it's incorporated now. I did set these in a pot of hot water while I stirred. That way the warmth would help dissolve the sugar a little bit. So, if you're in a rush, like I am, works totally fine. While I'm at it, before I get started, I'm going to label these. That way I know which is which. So that one's going to be our mint. Okay, so let's start with the mint. So this is net weight 0.66 ounces or 18 grams. It's actually bigger than most stores sell. I'm just going to chop it up a little bit. Probably not even necessary. I should take a read. That is 1.000. Why does it tastes sweet. I didn't think this was 1.000. And if I didn't know that, I would say this was maybe almost in the half sweet range. That is delightful. Okay, so I'm just basically going to stuff this in here a little bit at a time. Okay. I can like barely contain myself right now. Alright, so there's number one. I'm so happy right now. And then here's number two. I was originally just going to do the mint. I was not really going to do this one, just because I was worried about these warm spices tasting Christmassy. Oh, that's good. But I have two different batches, so let's go for it. So here's one cinnamon stick. I do prefer to use whole spices, but for cardamom, I've never even used it before, honestly. And I was only able to find it in ground form at one specific grocery store. Okay. I don't know what to make of that. I was going to add a teaspoon, but this, it just smells very strong and I don't want it to overpower. Like I said, I don't want too much of that warm spice overwhelming the pomegranate because I know this will be easily overwhelmed. So let's do a half a teaspoon of cardamom. I can always add more later. It's just if I overwhelm it, that's going to be really difficult to fix. I knew I was going to need that again. One more quick little stir. Can't forget the airlock, of course. And this is just because the airlock is a little bit shaky in there. It's a little bit, I can't quite keep it pressed all the way down and in. Alright, so I'm going to put these in a dark place and I'm just going to let them, you know, do their thing. And I'm probably going to taste every few days, see how I like it, see how I like the spice level, and if I make any adjustments, I'll show you guys that too. So it's been about 4 days. I'm going to take a quick reading, take a quick test, and decide what I'm doing next because I'm a little bit worried that there was some natural yeast on these mint leaves because I saw a little bit of activity in the airlock. I'm just going to make sure everything is okay. You can never have too many readings. Still 1.000, so we're okay. And then I'm going to rack this in here to see how much I really got because I'm curious. I've got a chair down here that I'm putting my stuff on. This is hard to do with one set of hands. But here we go. Yep, just short of 3 liters or 3 quarts. It's like 2.5 quarts, I would say. And I didn't get any of the leaves in, so of the mint, so that's good. Kind of a lot of mint. I'm kind of thinking it's going to age out though. I'm happy with that. 1 liter bottle, 3 of these, 500 milliliter, and 1 of these. Should be right. Alright, hold up. Seal them up. And of course, we have to do the same thing to the batch of cinnamon cardamom. Alright, so we are all done with the bottling. I am very happy with the amount of wine that I got. I will be setting these aside to age just for a few more weeks, maybe a month or 2, and then I'll be doing a tasting video, so feel free to tune in for that. And thanks for watching.